The subpoena against Taylor Swift has been dropped by Justin Baldoni's team. This was the plan all along. It's a very smart way of making this information public, but I'm sure that they made a deal already before this whole process started.
Blake Lively is having a total public breakdown in court after her former close friend Taylor Swift quietly but sharply said something that changed the whole situation.
And that's all Justin Baldoni's team needed from Taylor Swift.
Girl, did you really try to use old texts to blackmail your best friend and expect her to keep quiet? You're totally out of your mind if you thought someone like Taylor Swift would be scared. And the fact she dropped the subpoena after quietly making a deal with Friedman says it all.
It says here that this source is saying that Taylor Swift, the godmother of Lively's 3 daughters, is said to be relieved their decade-long bond is now over. Right now, if Taylor had one wish, it would be that she never met Blake.
From the very beginning, what seemed like a close sisterhood in private was actually filled with control and quiet intimidation. According to several insiders, Blake wasn't just asking for help, she was insisting on it.
When Taylor looks back at their friendship, she realized that it wasn't worth all the stress Blake put her through. She can now see all the red flags that could have been a warning to her.
The price for saying no was the threat of exposing 10 years of private text messages, all saved and ready to be shared if Taylor didn't cooperate. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was a calculated emotional blackmail, masked as a request for loyalty.
Right now, if Taylor had one wish, it would be that she never met Blake.
Taylor faced 2 impossible options: either give in to Blake's threats and publicly back her, even though it would ruin her own reputation, or say no and risk having private chats leaked and twisted by tabloids eager for drama. In this situation, Taylor couldn't truly win by any usual standard.
Or someone from Taylor Swift's team or someone close to Taylor Swift contacted Brian Friedman back in February 14th to be exact. He received a phone call from someone saying to him that Taylor Swift had been pressured by Blake Lively to delete evidence, to delete text messages between her and Blake Lively.
So she let someone else take the first step, her own dad, Scott Swift. While Blake was busy planning ways to pressure Taylor with legal threats and media tactics, Scott quietly reached out to Justin Baldoni's lawyers. Just like that, the whole situation changed.
And she was pressured to give a public statement or to support Blake Lively in public. And if she didn't, Blake would leak 10 years of their private text messages together. As I said earlier today, this didn't give Taylor Swift much of an option. Either she would support Blake Lively in public, which could be like PR suicide for her.
It was Scott Swift, not Taylor, who told Brian Friedman about the extortion attempt on Valentine's Day. Of all days, Brian got a call on February 14th that would change the whole legal side of this celebrity drama.
She did support her. Blake Lively would release all these text messages, which could also affect Taylor Swift's career, dramatically. I mean, there could be stuff in there, of course, that she doesn't want to get out there.
Scott was clear that Blake forced Taylor into a tough legal situation by threatening to reveal secrets, making her act like the ideal friend publicly. Scott didn't have to shout or share a long apology on notes. He only had to make sure the real story reached the right people. And it did.
Who wants their private text messages to be public? So what I think happened here, obviously, is that Taylor Swift's team agreed with Brian Friedman that he would subpoena Taylor Swift. They would file for it to get dismissed or for the subpoena to be tossed, whatever the legal term for that is.
With that strategic action, Taylor was immediately shielded from any legal risks and public relations problems. The details didn't originate from her, so she hadn't said anything. Her name wasn't included in the leaked papers.
And then he would send a letter to the judge explaining what had happened and why he needed that subpoena. And in that letter, all these things that we just learned about last week would become public. Is a very smart way of making this information public. And then I think Blake Lively's team agreed to make it a sworn statement.
The secrets, the threats, the blackmail, the intense pressure, were now with a legal team ready to act. Suddenly, Blake Lively lost control of the story. Instead of shaping the narrative, she found herself exposed and criticized. Meanwhile, her ex-best friend stayed completely silent.
And Brian Friedman made it a sworn statement. And when that happened, they didn't really need the subpoena anymore. And I think that's when they agreed that Brian Friedman and Justin Baldoni's team would drop the subpoena against Taylor Swift.
What makes this twist even more shocking is how quietly it was done. Taylor didn't have to go to court or post any harsh messages online. Instead, she let her father handle things and set the facts in motion. By the time Brian Friedman submitted his official statement, everything was already decided.
The subpoena against Taylor Swift has been dropped by Justin Baldoni's team.
The dropped subpoena wasn't a sign of backing down, it was part of a cleverly planned trap. At first glance, it seemed like Taylor Swift had escaped trouble when Justin Baldoni's team pulled back their subpoena. But for anyone who knows how legal strategy works, this wasn't an escape. It was a carefully designed setup.
I think that's when they agreed that Brian Friedman and Justin Baldoni's team would drop the subpoena against Taylor Swift. So then, all that information about what she did to Taylor Swift, how she threatened her and tried to extort her, all this information would become public.
In fact, sources reveal that Taylor's team secretly worked with Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, to send that subpoena, fully aware it would be dropped later. Why? Because their true aim wasn't to make Taylor testify. Instead, it was to bring Blake Lively's extortion efforts into the open, under the safety of the law, without Taylor needing to speak a single word in court.
But I'm sure that they made a deal already before this whole process started.
Here's what happened. Taylor's team realized that fighting Blake's threats with a public argument would only make things worse, turning it into a messy drama Taylor wanted to avoid for years. So instead, they created a legal strategy behind the scenes. They let the subpoena become public to attract media attention. Then, as planned, Taylor's lawyers asked to cancel it, saying it wasn't needed. This wasn't a loss, it was a clever trap.
I wish I'd never met Blake. New humiliation for Lively as singer outs the glaring red flag she missed during the 10 years friendship.
While the media portrayed the subpoena withdrawal as a victory for Blake, making it seem like she had avoided legal trouble, Brian Friedman was submitting an official statement to the court. This document revealed all the details. Blake's threats, her insistence that Taylor publicly back her, and her threat to release a decade of texts if Taylor didn't agree. The truth came out, but not directly from Taylor herself.
It says here that this source is saying that Taylor Swift, the godmother of Lively's 3 daughters, is said to be relieved their decade-long bond is now over.
What made the move so sharp and clever was that Taylor didn't have to do anything herself. Her lawyer turned the whole world into a witness. Every important point was shared through a written statement, not a public announcement.
When Taylor looks back at their friendship, she realizes it wasn't worth all the stress Blake put her through. She can now see all the red flags that could have been a warning to her.
While Blake's team worked hard to make Taylor look like a scared celebrity avoiding subpoenas, they missed the bigger problem. The real harm was already done. The public didn't actually need Taylor to speak in court. Instead, they had something stronger, an official sworn statement filed in court that explained every troubling part of the alleged blackmail attempt in detail.
And she says, or the person says, Taylor had to tone Blake down time and time again because she always wanted to be the leader of the pack. Taylor's relieved the relationship is over. She put up with Blake's antics for too long because she's a loyal friend.
What the media missed was that they were too busy chasing headlines about Taylor's subpoena being dropped. They didn't notice the important details quietly added to the official court papers. The real shock wasn't the subpoena itself, but what was hidden inside the legal documents. Once that information became part of the case, no amount of public relations could change it. Suddenly, Blake Lively wasn't just a top actress. She became a serious legal risk overnight.
It is understood that a dutiful Kelsey is following suit in cutting off Lively and Reynolds.
The move was incredibly smooth and polished, so much that even experienced celebrity lawyers said it was one of the smartest and toughest strategies they'd ever seen in a big public fight. Taylor didn't fight back with anger or start a public drama. Instead, she quietly relied on the legal system, and it worked far better than any emotional outburst ever could.
This is, I think, one of the reasons that a lot of celebrities turns into monsters.
But the story didn't stop there. Just as the legal hit landed, Taylor's private feelings started slipping into the media. The Daily Mail published a scoop quoting someone close to Taylor, and the message was clear: "I wish I'd never met Blake." No fancy words, no flowery expressions, just plain, cold regret. That single line held the pain of years of friendship shattered by betrayal.
Because not a lot of people would know that she had received a text from Blake Lively demanding her to delete conversations between them, text messages between them, which would be really like, deleting evidence.
But the story didn't end there. Right when the legal trouble began, Taylor's true feelings started leaking out. The Daily Mail shared a tip from someone close to Taylor, and the message was simple: "I wish I never met Blake." No fancy language, no softening, just honest, sharp regret. That one sentence carried the weight of years of a friendship broken by betrayal.
Not a lot of people would know that Blake Lively's attorney had been contacted by Blake Lively's attorney demanding her to support her publicly. If not, Blake Lively would leak 10 years of private text messages from Taylor. I have to blame someone for this, and that's why she sued Justin Baldoni, because she could not handle the fact that people didn't like her.
The scandal around Taylor Swift and Blake Lively has reached a boiling point. Taylor stayed silent for weeks, while Blake's team tried to blame Justin Baldoni and pressured Taylor to speak up. But Taylor refused, signaling she was done with the lies and betrayal. The friendship is over, broken by legal battles, blackmail allegations, and a public fallout. Travis Kelce unfollowing Ryan Reynolds was just the start of a Hollywood shift. Taylor and her inner circle, including Selena Gomez and Gigi Hadid, are distancing themselves from Blake and Ryan. Meanwhile, Blake's PR stunts fall flat, and her reputation is crumbling under the weight of the court case and public distrust. This isn't just a breakup, it's a power struggle gone wrong, and Blake lost. The celebrity exodus continues, and Hollywood is watching closely. What do you think? Was this the final nail in Blake Lively's reputation, or will Hollywood still protect her? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't hold back.